Hello, hello. I was just adjusting my camera as usual. All right. Well, just just adjusted a little more. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. It's your girl Gabrielle. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. If you are new to the show, let me tell you what the show is about. So, this is the show where we like to have real talk about real things, all right? We tend to focus on certain areas, right? We tend to focus on education, employment, self-care, resiliency. What else? We like to talk about life, talking with other tutors like myself. Okay, I'm back. Okay. Yeah, so this is the show where we like to get into the nitty-gritty of things. We like to do a deep dive into single topics, and today is no different. So I am excited about this episode because today is not only do I have a repeat topic, but I have a repeat guest. So let me tell you the repeat topic. So the repeat topic is study abroad. So this is part 2 of our installment, Study Abroad. I am bringing this topic back. So I love it when I bring back topics. I get to explore multiple perspectives of the same thing. So this is part 2 of our sub series, Study Abroad. And my repeat guest, her name is Sandra Jeffrey. Go back to our episode about, I already forgot, talking with tutors, excuse me, talking with tutors. She was on part 7 of that, and now I am bringing her back for our study abroad episode. So let me just remind you about who Sandra is. So Sandra, she she is an she is an international education advocate that supports and empowers others to step out of their comfort zone. Boom. All right, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring her to the stage. Hi, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good, good. All right, so welcome back to the hot seat. Welcome back to Hot Topics.
Thank you.
So this is our second episode together. So I hope I didn't scare you away from the last time we met.
Not at all.
All right. All right. So today we're going to talk about studying abroad. So, as without further ado, I'm going to let you take the stage. So please tell us your experience studying abroad.
So I have been studying abroad since the early 90s. That kind of gives you my age. But I started studying abroad actually, I first started going abroad when I got information as a high school student, and I went to 5 countries through the People to People Student Ambassador Program. A lot of people might have heard about it. And on that trip, I went to England, London, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and at that time, the Soviet Union. And at that time, I had homestays at places in Sweden. I had a homestay, and also in England. And it was outside of London that I had to study abroad. The homestay rather, for a week. So we were there for the whole summer. So that was my first exposure to traveling abroad and being in a different country with my peers. After that, when I started college, I got interested in going to China. And I was nervous because I really had no background experience going to China. No one I have known had lived or traveled to Asia. So I was nervous. And my mom was particularly scared because that's not something that she could guide me or, she was familiar with. Nevertheless, I ventured off and I remember leaving. looking back at my family saying, what am I doing? But it was the best decision I ever made, going to a foreign country, going to China in particular in the early 90s. It was before McDonald's was in China. So there was an opportunity for me to get the pure aspect of the culture before it was a little westernized, before the influx of McDonald's and Wendy's, et cetera, in China, or Pizza Hut rather. After that, after my 6 months in China, I came back to college and I encouraged more of my classmates to go to China, and it encouraged my peers to do a year abroad in China or to do a year abroad in Spain, because I just came back with just excitement and just sharing with my experience abroad. They just wanted to also participate in it. Now, after I finished college, I went back. I kept going back to China. I actually went to Taiwan. I got a scholarship to go to Taiwan. And the most important thing about studying abroad is you can always find the opportunity, especially as a college student, because there's always an international abroad or study abroad office in your university. And for the high school level, there are opportunities, but you have to seek it out a little more, for our high school students. But the important thing, especially for students of color, is to step out of your comfort zone. The percentage of African Americans, in particular, or people of color going abroad has decreased. Is not very high. It's about 5.5% comparative to the non people of color, which is obviously a higher percentage. So we want to encourage more people of color to study abroad. And there are many reasons for that. I usually do presentations explaining to students why it's important to study abroad. But one of a couple of reasons why it's good to go abroad. One, it's fun. Like, that's the bare bones. As a young person, you want to try something different. Studying abroad is the best way for you to get out of your comfort zone. You do it in a controlled environment. And when I say controlled, do a program where people know where you are, right? Your parents know where you are. There's a contact number for you to reach somebody, or for your family to reach somebody. And you feel safe when you do a program. So I've always done programs until I was older, and then I just went on my own because I was just comfortable. But it's important to have that comfort zone. It's fun, and you need that comfort zone. Those are the two important things, right? And three, you feel empowered because you're doing something that you didn't think you were going to be doing last year, right? So you're trying new foods, you're getting on a bus by yourself in a country where you don't speak the local language. That's scary. But once you see yourself going through the motion, it empowers you to say, I did this. I can get on the bus by myself, or with my classmates rather, and I can go to the store, or I can get some ice cream, or I can buy ice cream at the local bodega, or shamaibu, they call it in China. So you can do that, and that is empowering, because when you get back home, you're like, I can do anything. I can fly because of because of the experience of studying abroad. So I would consider those are the four main things to consider when you're going abroad. It's fun. You need some place that gives you a comfort, a sense of security, and it empowers you. So that's three, and it empowers you, and that's the best part of it. So that's my summary of studying abroad and why it's important.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So, I know you mentioned it in our last interview, but I'm going to have you discuss it again.
Sure.
So, and you brought up a couple other countries, um, but particularly China. Can you just discuss again what made you decide to go to China?
One, it was initially a deer. Someone had told me that I couldn't go, and I thought, I never heard that I couldn't do something not from the way I was raised. So I said, of course I can, not knowing what I was doing, or what I was actually getting myself into. So I went to the study abroad office. I filled out the application because I'm thinking, why can't I go? There's no reason why I cannot complete the application and go to China. I only knew about its history, right? It has a very long history. So I said, let me just take that chance. It was a leap of faith. That's the real reason I stepped out of my comfort zone. That's the real reason why I went to China. and I'm glad I did it.
So what was the process like? So, because like I said in the last interview, I studied abroad in Italy while I was in college. So, what were the steps you took? So, you decided to go to China. What was the next step?
So for what a lot of students don't realize and what they should know is when you want to participate in a study abroad program, it's a process, right? And you have to complete the application. 99 times out of 10, you know, 9 out of 100, the application process is including your name and essays. You will have to write an essay about why you want to go abroad. And it could simply be because you want to try something different. You want to step out of your comfort zone. It's important that you're honest in your essay about why you want to study abroad, even though you've never been to that country before, even if you haven't spoken the language. Because most people go abroad because they don't are not familiar with the culture and the language. So it's an opportunity for you to learn and grow. So you have to fill out the application. Every process is a little different, but there after you submit your application, your recommendation letters, your essays, etc., then that has to be reviewed by a committee, and then you're selected. Once you're selected, then each school or each program has a different pre-departure orientation process. A lot at back then they didn't really have one when in the early 90s, but today most schools and most programs have a pre-departure orientation process that allows you to be prepared for the trip, knowing you have to have your passport. If you have to have a visa, China, you have to have a visa. England, not every country requires a visa. Whatever the process is for the country you're going to, the program will you usually they provide you a summary or of steps, next steps of what you have to do in order to be properly prepared for the program and to get into the country. How much, what to pack. Usually they give you a list of what to bring and what not to bring on the trip. And knowing, a lot of times you're doing education, so you're taking classes. Bring your notebook, bring your pens. Things that'll make you feel comfortable. Also, because you're not in at home.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a process because when I remember when I went, it was well because my passport was because I was born in Trinidad, so I still had my Trinidadian passport plus
Okay.
the green card. So it's like because I didn't have an American passport, it was like an extra step I had to take because I had to confer with the Trinidadian consulate, as well as the U.S. consulate. So that's a whole other thing. But it was you got to make sure you have your visa. It's certain things that you can bring with you. I mean, of course, it's a study visa, and
Right.
and I think the when I had, well, I knew I was only going to be there for half a semester, so mine was like 3 months,
Right.
I think. If you're going to be for a year, I'm assuming they give you up to a year.
It
The visa,
depends. It
yeah,
depends. Each country is different in terms of what they require, and your purpose. It could be study or it could be a tourist visa, depending on the length of time that you're in the country.
yeah, yeah. So it's you have to get the visa, and then the fact that you're going to a school, so now you have to figure out, how is it going to work with like financial aid
Yeah.
or with paying for school, right? Because I lucked out because I went to a school that had a campus in Italy as opposed to what happens with a lot of other students is they go to they go to one college but they have to go to a completely different college,
Mm-hmm.
so now it's
For
you have to
housing.
re-enroll. So I lucked out because again, it's like staying in house, so it's
Mm-hmm.
easy that way. So
Well,
it was
yeah, my program was similar. Yeah, because when I first went to China, because they had a partnership. I went to City College in Harlem, and they had a partnership with the school I went to in China. And so once we got to China, they were expecting us to arrive, and so we were able to stay on the campus of where we were actually doing our studies. However, when I was in Taiwan, I was at a private school. I got a scholarship to study Chinese at a private institution, and I had to find housing on my own. But I had already finished college at that time, etc. So I was more independent, but I still went through a kind of organized program. So every program is really different. But a lot of times, the programs, especially the universities, they try to make sure there's some type of partnership with the sister school in the foreign country to make sure that the students feel comfortable or to make sure they're not far from the campus where they're taking their classes.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that would be my recommendation for anyone studying abroad is if, I mean, it depends on where you want to go, but if you could
Mhm.
stay either within the school or, find if the school has a partnership, like you
Yeah,
said, it does make it a lot easier. And if you want to enroll to a completely private school, that's, I mean, that's a lot more work, but
yeah.
uh, so now let's get into, you get to China, where did you stay?
So when we got to I was in Guangzhou, which is Canton, which is near the Hong Kong border. It's southern China. And once we got there at midnight. It was an adventure getting there. But because we ended up coming from Hong Kong to Guangzhou, and that was an adventure, just trying to figure out how to navigate, etc. So once we get to Guangzhou, we went to Sun Yat-sen University, and we stayed on campus. Now, they at the time we stayed in there. The first floor of the dormitories on the campus it was they treated it like a hotel. So people used to rent out the not rent out, but they used to use the hotel portion of the dorm, and then the upper floors was the foreign students dormitory. So we were in the foreign students dormitory, and then the first floor was the hotel portion. Now it's different. Most campuses today have just a hotel for people to get rooms, and then a huge foreign students dormitory. So we were in that dorm, and my dormitory consisted of people from everywhere across the globe, places I've never heard of before in my life, to places that I'm familiar with. So there were people from different parts of Africa, Japan, Singapore, Senegal, Germany. That was all my community while I was on campus. And they were also there studying Chinese. A lot of them were also getting their master's or bachelor's, getting their education in China. So that community is what I embraced when I got to China. And so I wasn't expecting that coming from college. I didn't know what to expect, but it was with open arms. I met all these different people from different backgrounds that I connected with we were all there for one purpose, to study Chinese or to, get our education on the campus. So we would go to lunch together. We would go to the cafeteria together. The school usually organized, and that's one good thing about the schools on the campuses when you go abroad. They 99% of the time they're organizing events for the foreign students so that they can one connect and feel part of the culture in China or wherever you are, so that they can feel like they're embracing it and they can practice the language. So they would organize, volleyball games, or walking, or hiking, different activities with the people within our dormitory. And then we would organize events too. We would organize dinners, a potluck, an international potluck we would usually do. Or even if we're cooking dinner in the dorm, some dorms allow you to cook dinner. We would cook dinner on the campus, and everybody would try each other's food. So this is the community that you're a part of, but they're from all over the world, and that cultural diversity is so uplifting, because you're not really accustomed to that level, right, of interaction with people. You know people, but this level of interaction on a daily basis when you're going to classes, just learning and growing, is what fills you when you're going abroad.
Absolutely, absolutely. So so it was like a hotel within the campus.
Within the dormitory, yeah, within the that is on the campus, yeah.
Oh, okay. So was that something that every student had to do? Was it required, or
All
were
the
there
foreign
other?
students, no, all the foreign. So in China in particular, the foreign students live in the foreign students dormitory.
Oh, okay. Because when I went, like my school had living options, So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, you mentioned homestay, which is what I did.
Okay.
And then there's the dormitory if people wanted to do the dormitories or if they wanted to find their own living arrangements. So, my school had options. So it's interesting that, all the foreign students had to stay in a dormitory.
Yeah.
So now, what, so did you get to choose like what kind of room, or did you have roommates, or what
No,
was it like in there?
no, I mean, you don't get that option. They're just, and I kind of agree with that. Like in the company that I ran a nonprofit in China, bringing high school students to China from New York, from America, and we did the same type of format. They came to China, they lived in the dorm, but we selected who they were going to room with, and it's important because people kind of click together, and we're trying to encourage others, for you to talk to other people, engage with others. So I didn't pick my roommate. From my school, there were 5 students, 4 people of color, and we went to China together. It was 4 girls and 1 guy. So they picked my roommate, and I just had to deal with it, because that's just life. And if she was a roommate from hell, then I still had to deal with it. But she wasn't. I've had great roommates over the years when I've done study abroads, but not everybody has, and I get that. But you try to work it out, and then you try to figure something else out, or talk to whoever's in charge. So my school, at least in China, some of the programs do give you the option to, and it's depending on how the program is set up. So if the program is set up for you to live in the dorm, that's where you're. Because when you're going into another country, you don't know anybody, you don't know anything. Most of the students, right? There are a handful that have a friend, etc. But most people don't have those connections, so they want to feel safe. So if the school is organizing and saying you're going to live in this dorm, then I'm going wherever the school is recommending, especially
Mhm.
for new people studying abroad. For the people who are more experienced, yeah, you can use the third option of finding your own place. But for the new people who are nervous, everybody's nervous when you're going to a different country because it's different. You don't know about the safety. You don't know if somebody's gonna, you want to make sure you're in a safe environment. And so the most important thing is, at least on my end, I stayed in the dorms in the first couple of years I studied abroad, and that gave me comfort to do that type of, to stay on campus. And all my classmates was on campus. That's the other thing. You want to be able to engage with your classmates so that you have your network of support, right? They know where you are. You could go to lunch together with them and go to breakfast and dinner and explore the city, with a group of people instead of being alone. And even if you are a loner, you end up eventually connecting with somebody because you don't know the language, so you'll end up depending on somebody to go with you. So you will develop some type of friendships with someone, even if you're a person that likes to be by yourself. But the people who like to be by themselves, they went to China or they travel abroad to break out of that shell.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like so there actually places to eat on campus?
Oh yeah, so it's just like
Oh.
a regular American campus, at least in China. It's a regular campus. There's a cafeteria, and it was open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But a lot of times we would go off campus and try the food across the street. There were lots of restaurants across the street from the campus. My campus was pretty big, and it was in the center of the city, so we were able to explore the restaurants in the area. And then once we got comfortable with our language skills, knew how to get on the bus or take a cab with the people who can speak the language better than us. Um, we would take a cab, to a different restaurant and try different foods. So that's the other thing. The other foreign students in the building, they had been there for a year or two longer than us. So they were familiar with the different restaurants and things to do. So they would give us recommendations a lot, and we would say, okay, well, whenever you're ready to go, let me know so I can join you, because I couldn't go by myself. I didn't even know how to get to the restaurant. So, and even if they wrote it down on paper, sometimes I would take that, but then I had to make sure I know how to get a cab to get back to the dorm before the gates closed. So it was just like being in a U.S. dorm.
Oh, wow. So my your school was very inclusive because mine, there was no dining area
Oh,
in the
okay.
school, so we had to eat outside. So
Understand.
just hearing you talk was like, oh
Yeah.
wow. My campus was not like that. It was, you're here for classes and that's it. Go into the community to eat something. But so I'm wondering now, because your campus was so inclusive, how many did you get a sense that there were a lot of students that didn't really venture off of the campus,
Oh, everybody ventured off
and
campus.
explore? Or everybody did. Oh,
Everyone ventured off campus because after a while, well, we would organize, like I said, the school organized trips or programs for the international students, for the foreign students. And there would always be somebody in the dorm to say, hey, we're going to, at the end of my campus, for example, there was a boat that took us to Beijing Lu, which is like a strip for shopping. And there's a long way you can get there to take the bus, but our school was like at the end of a lake, or at the end where it was located. You could take a boat to get to that shopping area. And so we didn't know about it. Somebody mentioned it and said, hey, I'll take you if you want to come with me. And so we said, okay, yeah. So there was always, and somebody was always, traveling somewhere and venturing off campus, because everybody was trying to help the new people because they know how difficult it was for them. And so they're always helpful for other people. It's a lot of it's a lot of paying it forward. It's a lot of paying it. Can you hear me?
yes, I can.
Oh, I can't. It's a lot of paying it forward for a lot of the international students. There's a lot of support, a lot of help, a lot of encouragement. Even when you're speaking Chinese, for example, there would be somebody helping you with your Chinese and saying, "Oh, this is how you should say it," or "This is how you should," or because we're all struggling, and when you're struggling, somebody else helped you, so you want to help the next person around you.
Yeah, yeah. You can hear me?
Okay,
No. Okay. We're having some
okay, I got you
difficulty.
now.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
All right, all right. We had some difficulties and we're back. All right. So it's I guess it's commendable of the campuses because they want students to venture off
Hmm.
campus. So because I think my what my school did was, um, there were some classes that I took where, like getting into the community and talking to people, and it was part of the experience. It was part of the class, so it was integrated
Okay.
into the curriculum. And then the fact that we were still college students, right? So of course you had the students that were like, we want to party, right? So
Right.
how do we party in Italy, so so of course you had those students that college is college wherever you go in the world, right?
Right.
So now, um so the fact that the schools are aware that these are foreign students, so we want them to integrate into the community. So they create different events and they have
Mhm.
different things on campus. And I think what my school did, there was a booklet of events going on in Italy, and they gave it to every student. So it was, it's definitely, well, they threw us into the fire pretty much. It sounds like you guys had an easier time. So now, um,
It all feels like fire, no matter what you do, because
yeah.
it's new and nobody's interested, or you're like, I've never heard of it before. I was thrown into doing a talent show. I used to sing, and so I sang a Chinese song that I knew. And then next thing, and I was shy, I didn't want to do it because, but next thing you know, I'm at the bank and somebody's telling me, oh yes, you were on TV, and I wasn't on TV, but I was. Apparently, they televised the talent show that I performed in. I didn't even know. So they kind of throw you in the water, in the fire. But it's fun. It's life in China, and it just changes your perspective on things. Also, when you're thrown in the fire because you survive, right? A lot of times you don't think you can. You're not going to make it because this is so different. But those experiences abroad, I can handle this. I can handle anything. And everything is not that serious. It's just exploring. It's just trying something new that you've never heard of before. Yes, but there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, were there any like safety issues being in a different country? I know like when I went, it was like you always have to like, keep your stuff, keep your property close or people will steal it and, people will just stare at you. So, did you get any of those pep talks or safety talks or safety warnings or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we got the safety talks for everyone in general, right? I'm from New York, so I automatically I'm always protective of my belongings, right? I always have it close to me, whether I'm in New York, China, or anywhere else. I'm always trying to be protective of myself. But they gave us the talk. They told us be conscious, be aware of your surroundings. Don't walk alone at night. But China is it's very, very safe compared to the U.S. in terms of walking around. At night. I tried not to do that, of course, but if I did it, I was always with a group of friends, right? So even in the U.S., you don't want to walk around at 2 o'clock in the morning by yourself because it's just not safe. You want to make sure you're safe. So we did get those talks. People always stared. In China, they will stare. That's a given. A lot of times when I've done my pre-departure orientation for students, I'll explain to them that because they are people of color, black women, black men, a lot of the locals are not accustomed to seeing black people except for what they see on television. And so I prepare them that they will stare because they're in awe of us. They've never seen people with our hue and different hues, right? So they're surprised. And then they're friendly about it because they just want to take pictures with you. They'll give you your baby, and you'll take a picture with their baby, for them to put in a photo album. So it's harmless, but that will come automatically. I've gotten accustomed to it in China, but for new students and people who
All right. Looks like you're
no,
still
yeah,
there.
yeah, I'm still
Okay.
here.
Sorry, you froze a little bit. What was that last part?
I said you get accustomed to it, but for new people, it's just part of the reality of being in a different country sometimes.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point about racial identity abroad, and that's something we'll talk
Yeah,
about next time. And that was the experience that I had. People came up to me in Italy was and automatically assumed I was from Africa,
right.
right? And I tell them like, no, I'm from America, right? So it's can you talk more about that about how people perceive, black people abroad? And I know we'll go into more detail next time. But I had an experience with that, and can you talk more about that?
I mean, it's a challenge, and it's really a double-edged sword, right? Because as much as I enjoy traveling to China, learning about Chinese culture, learning the language, speaking to Chinese people, just engaging in conversation, learning about their culture. There's a flip side to that. There are some locals who are not accustomed to seeing black women, black people, so they're surprised. They want to see, they'll say my hair is beautiful, my hair is different, they'll always say my hair is beautiful. Oh, need a tofa pialiang, or how many, oh, need the bienza, your braids, they're beautiful. They always are very complimentary, but they're surprised. There are a lot of stares. In the beginning it's difficult, especially as an 18-year old, 20-year old, or anybody, right? When you're first time somebody's staring at you, that's difficult to accept, right? So for Chinese, but once they start to get to know you, they realize, oh, because I have a lot of Chinese friends, right? On campus in particular, they would come up to me and start talking to me and chatting with me because they're curious. And I appreciate that because they want to learn more and know more about me. But a lot of times the locals, they're just never seen. A lot of them are staring at you because they've only seen a black person on television or in a book or on a poster, Michael Jordan on a poster. Do I know Michael Jordan? Yes. Am I Beyonce? Yes, I'm Beyonce. I'm her cousin. I'm her. Because they've never, they don't really know what she looks like in person. But for them, they are in awe because of our hue is our complexion is completely different to theirs, right? And our hair texture is completely different. So when it's completely opposite to what they own or have, people are surprised, and they talk about it because their culture, most people look similar in terms of their skin tone and their hair texture.
Right, and it also brings up a deeper issue in regards to like foreign immigration. And because at the time I was in Italy, I think people that, even though I don't know if they changed it, it was many years ago, but if your ancestry was from a different country, even though your kids were born in Italy, they're not considered national. They're not considered Italian. So I don't know if that's changed. That was a while ago, but it brings up a deeper issue of immigration and lack of diversity, and um, and the perception of different races, and the only way that they know about different races is on TV, on media, and things like that. So now, were you when you initially went to China, were you offended? Were you weirded out? Were you, because it sounds like you had a positive reaction.
I was weird. I mean, I was weirded out in the beginning, of course, because I'm not used to people staring at me. I'm not used to people. I mean, I enjoyed the fanfare of to a certain extent, right? Until it was every single solitary day. It's like, oh gosh, you saw me yesterday. I'm the same person that you said, hey, hi, black person. I'm the same person, but they're just still in shock. So I was weirded out in the beginning until I got accustomed to it and said, this is just how it is, until it got to a point where it, if you fast forward to I was last in China in 2014, you know, there people don't even look at me in certain parts of China, right? I lived in Beijing and I lived in Nanjing and Shanghai, those big cities. Those big cities, especially Olympics, they're accustomed to seeing more foreigners, right? But if you go to the rural area, to the countryside, those areas are not accustomed to seeing a lot of foreigners because that's most of the foreigners go to the big cities. A couple of people will go out to the rural areas, and that's where they'll be more shocked. I remember visiting a Chinese friend's home for Chinese New Year, and I drove in, and everybody in the town, not the town, the village, swarmed around the car to say hi to me because he told everybody that I was, that he's bringing a foreigner, to dinner for Chinese New Year. And so everybody was looking, wanted to see what I looked like. I felt famous, why not? And then I get out of the car, and then after that, after everybody sees me that I walk like they walk, and I'm normal. And once everything died down, but they were still in shock at the end of the day. So
Hmm.
it takes a lot to get used to. Some people do not get used to it because it's a lot. You have to find, I tell students, or people who travel to China, especially for an extended period of time, that they have to find their outlet, so that they can deal with this on a daily basis, because it is mentally stressful sometimes. But then on the other hand, you get to speak Chinese, and I'm talking Chinese and I'm having a great time. But then you need a break of, oh my gosh, you're a black person. You're a black person. That becomes overwhelming sometimes. It really does. But I had a great experience, and then a part of my experience was stressful. But I live in America. There are some days that you're here in your own home where you don't want to deal with anybody, but you still have to deal with work. You have to deal with, so not everything is always rosy 24/7. It's just life in China and life in the US. You have your stresses and your happy days. So it's the same. I think it's no different, but I think you learn how to adjust, with different situations when you're abroad.
Yeah, yeah, it's something. I mean, it wasn't as bad as I went, but you do notice you stand out,
Right.
right? So, and if you stand out, people are going to treat you a certain way, and it sounds like you had more. like positive racism, you know.
Well,
So, did
I
you
don't
have any
know. I
negative
mean, I
racism?
don't know if it was positive racism. I call it a lot more of lack of knowledge, more ignorance than racism, because they didn't know. If you don't know, you can only act on that ignorance, right? Because you're not educated about it. So the more people, but then later on, and more people got accustomed to seeing black people, right? Well, not only black Americans, they were Africans, right? So they got accustomed to seeing them. So their perceptions of black people, kind of went away, right? Because they were no longer staring at you. So my last time in China, I'm in Beijing walking to the, nobody's paying attention to me. No, I'm just walking down the street. I'm just like another person because they're accustomed to seeing me. I have had some negative experience. I think I applied to a job teaching English somewhere. And I wasn't there to teach English, but sometimes I wanted some extra money. I taught English. Um, and sometimes I went down to the job interview, and the person said, I have a graduate degree. Okay. And so I went to the interview, and once he saw me, he realized, oh, he said, oh, I realize that you're not qualified for the position to teach English to kids. I said, and I don't. I'd rather you tell me up front that you don't want black people, instead of having me waste my time to get there, and realize that I'm black, and realize, oh, you don't want a black person there, to teach your students, or not even to teach your students, but to be a part of your company, and that I've had a lot of different incidents like that throughout my time in China, and that's just a reality, but that's also reality in America, you know. But they do it a little subtly in the States.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. That's the vibe that I get. So, let's talk about the language part.
Sure.
So I mean, obviously you study Chinese in America. So did you ever
Mm-mm.
were you ever shocked, or was there a culture shock when you got to China and you attempted to speak Chinese? Was there a sense of like, whoa, this isn't the Chinese I learned in school, or did you nail it?
Well, I never studied Chinese in the States. My first exposure to Chinese was in China when I first went. So when I first got there, I didn't say, they gave us like a sheet with some important words, but I didn't know anything about Chinese. I couldn't, like, the language in terms of how to say anything. So when I started my classes in mainland China, that was my first learning experience of learning Mandarin Chinese. When after my first experience, then I started taking some classes here and there in college and law school. But before that, I had no exposure to Chinese. But the day that it clicked, when I got it, it was when I said something, and I was able to take the bus somewhere, and I was able to read something on the one of the characters, a set of characters on a store, and then I was able to get on a bus and go to my destination. I said it, the bus driver understood me, and then the whole ride I'm in shock. The bus driver understood what I said in Chinese. I can, and then he said it again because it was time for me to get off. The whole time I'm thinking, I just said it, and he understood me in my Chinese. I got off the bus. I had to say what I had to say to go where I went, and then when I came back on the bus to go back home, I said my school, and I got, because I was nervous. I didn't want to take the wrong bus. All these little things come into play because you have to know which bus to take, where to pick up the bus, right? You have to say which bus you want to take because you want to be able to ask people which bus, where the bus is. And so once I took the bus and I got back to the campus, I'm patting myself on the back the whole day because I didn't have to depend on anybody for me to translate or to communicate with, to get around the city. And that was triumphant for me. So I studied Chinese in Taiwan. I got scholarships throughout my time in college, in grad school. I got scholarships most of the time to study Chinese.
Oh, okay. So I didn't realize all of your exposure to the language came from China.
Yeah.
So that so now let me flip it then. So when you came back to America and you spoke Chinese, was there a sense of like, whoa, the way they speak is different than how
No,
I learned it?
no, no, it's the same. Because I had the benefit of studying in mainland China and in Taiwan, they use simplified and traditional characters. respectively, in those two countries. So those places, I should say. And so when I came back, I can understand. Like I was able to communicate, and Chinese is Chinese. It's not different. And versus going from China to Taiwan, there are certain phrases, just like in the different Spanishes, right? There are different ways as from what they say in Spain versus Puerto Rico. You know, the Spanish language, it varies. So time between China and Taiwan, there are some slightly different things, but the characters are the same. It's just written a little differently. And most people are always shocked, that I speak Chinese whenever I speak it.
Okay. All right. All right. So we'll start to wind things down now. So what was your best memory studying abroad?
Ooh, there's so many. So my best memory, I will say, that when I lived in Taiwan, my first Chinese music was that I listened to that I loved was by someone named Coco Lee Wen, and the organization that I worked for, getting the high school students to China. We did a concert to celebrate studying abroad for international students. So it was a collaborative concert with Will I Am, John Legend, and some other Chinese artists, and Coco Lee Wen. So she was one of the performers, and I was able to meet her backstage. And so I thought that was the coolest thing because I started studying China. I was in Taiwan in the early 90s, mid 95, 96. And then years later, I'm able to meet like the first Chinese artist that I fell in love with her music. So that is my favorite, my coolest Chinese experience.
Awesome. 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 All right. So, words of wisdom. What words of wisdom do you have for our audience? Maybe there might be someone who's interested in studying abroad, or any someone that wants to take the leap or anything like that. So, what advice do you have for our audience?
My advice is to go for it. Do your research, do your homework. Don't over research. Don't over, research, but do it. That's the simplest thing because when you overthink it, it discourages you. So make the decision and do it, and then follow through, and just take that chance. And you distinguish yourself from everyone else because everybody's not studying abroad. And once you do it, then you feel invigorated once you study abroad. When you come back, so my advice is to just do it.
Oh, okay. Oh, so speaking of that, so when you came back to America, how did you feel coming back? Because when I came back to America, like I felt weird because I lived in Italy for 3 months and then all of a sudden I had to readjust,
Yeah,
right, to
yeah, yeah.
American life. So how was it like for you coming back?
So the longer times I stay in China, it's harder for me to readjust, right? Sometimes we say we should have reverse cultural shock, orientation, because if we just readjusting to back to American culture becomes a challenge. But it was a little weird, I was, I can't, I have to speak in English, to communicate, whereas in China every day to survive, I'm speaking in Chinese. So it was an interesting adjustment. But it was, everybody was like, you're back in China. But I felt like I was on top of the world too, because I was just always talking about China and what I did and who I met and what we did. And, I could say these things in Chinese. So I was very, like a kid, in a candy store. I was very excited every single time I came back from China and waiting to go back.
And we didn't even, address this. Were there things about Chinese culture that shocked you, that was different from American culture? So, like for myself, I learned about a bidet. I didn't know what that was. Like, I just
Oh,
saw this
yeah.
mini toilet. I'm like, what is that? And then, they talked
Oh,
about it in one of my classes. Like, oh, it's called a
yeah.
bidet. I was like, oh, really? So, what were some things about China that shocked you about
Squat.
something about Chinese culture?
As you talk about the toilets and squatting, squatting was the
Yeah.
biggest cultural thing that I didn't expect, and I had to adjust. Like there was no way for me to get around it, but and using chopsticks. So those are two extremes, right? One is squatting, and that's just natural in China. And then the other thing was using chopsticks. My first time getting there, the next day after we arrived, we went to get dumplings. I didn't know how to use the chopsticks, and I was a battle between me and everybody else, and everybody was just eating the dumplings, and I couldn't get the dumplings because I was just trying to get this one dumpling in my chopstick, and it kept falling. I was just focused on it. And then next, once I got it in my mouth, when I looked in the plate, everything was gone. And everybody's like, "You snooze, you lose." So I was like, "I need to make sure I know how to use chopsticks."
All right. Awesome. 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 All right. Awesome. All right. So let's get to your promo. Thank you so much for
Thank
this
you.
amazing conversation. And let's get to your promo. There's your banner. There's your banner. All right, you guys. So, Sandra Jeffrey, she tutors Chinese, you guys. So, she tutors virtually for anyone interested in online students, and she also tutors locally for people in Atlanta, Georgia. So, if you are interested in her tutoring services, reach out to her. She has two Instagram accounts. So one is Chatting Connecting. I'll just spell that out for the audio people. It is ChattenConnecten. And the second one is Shanjia57. That's her personal account. I'll also spell that one out. It is SHANGJIE57. So I encourage you to check her out on Instagram and follow both of her accounts. Reach out to her on Instagram if you are looking for those services. And we didn't mention it last time, but we're doing it this time. You could also call her. Her phone number is 404-828-0086. You could also email her at info@chatconnect.com. So that's, I'll spell out the email. It is INFO, then there's the at symbol, ChatConnect.com. So if you are looking for Chinese tutoring, if you want to learn how to speak Chinese, whether you are a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, or you need advice on, studying abroad in China, Sandra is your girl. Reach out to her.
Yeah.
Again, she has two Instagram accounts. I encourage you to follow her. You could also call her and email her as well. So that information is at the bottom of your screen if you are watching this on video right now. And for those of you listening to this on audio, all of this information will be in the description. So either way, all of this information is at your fingertips. So whether you're watching this on video or listening to this on audio, all of this information is in the description. It is at your fingertips, and I encourage you to reach out to Sandra if you are looking for Chinese tutoring services. Sandra, is there anything else you want to share about your company, about your business, anything that you have to offer?
We also sell T-shirts that encourage people to learn about Chinese. So my T-shirt here, it says "I speak Chinese," and then it also has it in English, or it has it in Chinese phonetics and also in characters. I have T-shirts that say "Hello," "Ni hao" in Chinese as well. And you'll see it on my Instagram page. So if you're interested in some Chinese T-shirts that say simple, fun Chinese phrases, please go to my Instagram page
On both of them or one of them?
on the Chatting and Connecting Instagram page.
All right, so the chatting and connecting, you heard that, right? You need some t-shirts, depending on when you are watching this or listening to this, it's the Christmas season or just whatever, right? Someone needs a birthday present, a Christmas present, a Hanukkah present. You want to give someone a t-shirt as a gift, or you just want a spare t-shirt, you're running out of clothes, you need more clothes. She's selling t-shirts. Go to her Chatting Connecting Instagram page and you can buy a t-shirt. So I encourage you to buy those shirts. What sizes do you have in those
I have
shirts?
all sizes, all sizes. Just it's once you place the order, I can just get the shirts over to you.
All right, and is it just like domestic shipping, international shipping?
No, just domestic shipping at this time.
All right, so just domestic shipping, all sizes, you guys. So there you go. So go to her Instagram page, chat and connecting, and buy a t-shirt, and make sure you follow that account as well as the personal account.
Yes.
All right, so I am going to play this video. I want to make sure that we get this video in, so I'm going to play her promo video right now.
Ni hao, I speak Mandarin Chinese. That's right. I recommend chatting and connecting. Chatting and Connecting is an international education consulting organization that advises students on scholarships to study abroad. Their premier program, Chatting in Chinese, teaches Mandarin Chinese in a structured, fun, and easy way. You will learn the numbers, introductions, and other common phrases, along with the ability to read and write Chinese characters. The Chatting in Chinese program teaches both private and group classes for adults and children. For more information, go to Chatting and Connecting on Instagram. That's Chat and Connect with 2 T's and the letter N. Or email at info@chatconnect.com for the upcoming class schedule.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, Sandra, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Awesome, awesome. All right, I'll put you backstage now. All right, you guys, we have reached the ending of yet another episode. I'm just looking for my banner. Where's my banner? There's my banner. I'm always looking for my banner. I'm like, there it is. All right, you guys. So, that is it, you guys. I hope you took a lot from this conversation. I know I did. It's great to talk to another study abroad alum. So it's whenever I have an opportunity to talk to someone who's done the same things I did, whether that's tutoring or studying abroad or any kind of similar experiences, I love that. I love being able to to share stories and share information and having this platform and having this podcast and having um video and audio and having this podcast, it allows me to share this information with you. So that's why whenever I have this opportunity, I am all for it. But yes, let's get to the ending here. So, as a reminder, this podcast is a production of my company, A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So, if you are looking for tutoring services, whether it is for yourself, because we also work with adults, or it is for your child, whether it's homework help, college counseling, one-on-one tutoring, what else? Editing and proofreading. We we provide those services for you. So I encourage you to reach out to us. Our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You could also email us at success@astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You could also find us on our many social media accounts. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Eventbrite, WhatsApp, and YouTube. So just look up A Step Ahead Tutoring Services and you will find us. So I encourage you to find us on social media, follow us on all social media accounts. And if you need to reach us, you can reach us on social media as well. So I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to go to our website. Again, the website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com to learn more about how to get a tutor for whether it's for your child or for your family. And we do virtual tutoring as well as in-person tutoring for our local community that's New York City and Long Island. So if you are looking for a tutor, reach out to us. Our services are available. And I also want to encourage you guys to drop a rating. Let us know what you thought about this episode by leaving a comment in the comment section below or in the comment thread. Or, whether if you're listening to this on our podcast, drop a rating, drop a note, drop something. Drop something. Let us know what you thought about this episode. I definitely will appreciate your feedback. And finally, I encourage you guys to sign up for our text list. So, Hot Topics has its own text list. I encourage you to get on it. You will learn anything and everything that has to do with hot topics. So I encourage you to get on that text list. All you have to do is text the code hot topics to 917 764 3975. Again, just text the code hot topics to 917 764 3975. It is only for US and Canada only at this time, unfortunately. So for our international audience, send us an email. Let us know that you want to get on. That email again, success at a step ahead tutoringservices.com. And if you've missed any of this, do not fret. The information is in the description or it is scrolling below at the bottom of your screen if you're watching this on video right now. So whether you're listening on audio or watching on video, all of this information is at your fingertips. All right, you guys, and that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining me. And again, we're a little over time, but that is okay. I look forward to you joining me at the next episode. Let me just pull up my closing video here. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to you joining me at the next episode. Thank you again, you guys. And now I am signing off. Bye.